Is there one song that maybe did it for you?
Yeah, it was Smells Like Teen Spirit. I mean, I hate to say it at this point now.
Why?
Well, because it's, to me, they've killed it. They fucking killed it. It's Nirvana has been beaten so fucking far into the ground now for me that I can't listen to it because it's just 10-year anniversary, 15-year anniversary, 20-year anniversary. It's Nirvana Day.
You say they killed it. Who is they?
Just, you know who it is? Really, it's just it's some of the weaker mainstream outlets that refuse to search out great new music and are just want to grind that era into the ground. And there's something about that happens because a lot of mainstream radio, rock radio, is having a tough time right now because there is a lack of, and this is on us too. There's a lack of rock music right now for them to play, and so they're leaning on this era of grunge that was very successful. In fact, it was so successful it basically saved rock radio from becoming extinct. So I feel like there's this loyalty there that people feel towards that era, which I feel as well. You know, it's what I grew up on. But I feel like it's been so overdone, and you know, because of his death and because of what an impact he had on so many people's lives, it's an obvious kind of crutch to lean on to, you know, have a Nirvana weekend and bring up every anniversary. And this is the anniversary of his death. This is the anniversary of Nevermind. This is the anniversary of In Utero. This is the first time they played here. And it's just, to me, after so many years and so many anniversaries and so many reissues, it's a cop-out at this point. And I've heard every song of Nevermind 9 million times to the point where I just feel like I wish they would leave it alone for a little while, because I love that music and I love that era, but I mean, there's so much great music happening now, and I wish there was a little bit more emphasis put on the fact that there are these great bands out there, and they are making great music, and I wish there was more focus in promoting that stuff.
You said promoting it, but you said that actually Nirvana, grunge saved rock radio.
Yeah.
You said now they feel responsible to that era because there's not many more music that they like to be played.
Yeah.
Is there some good rock music now that
Oh,
they
yeah.
don't want to play, or is rock music not that good as it used to be?
I think you got a little bit of both going on there, and there's definitely a little bit of a lacking of bands, but at the same time there's still lots of great bands, you know, which may sound contradictory, but when you compare the number of great bands there were in the 70s and the number of great bands there were in the 90s, there is a bit of a lull right now, which is fine, because every time there's a lull there's a huge peak that happens afterwards.
But don't you think it's just playing...
That's fine. Play devil's advocate. Go ahead.
Don't you think there's something different going on now? Because you had in the 70s, then you had some sort of disco, there's a new style, then you had, like you were saying, the glam rock.
Glam rock,
yeah. And then you had the hip hop. But now with dance and DJing, plus the more technical abilities young kids have to make music, then maybe rock music is getting less input from youth.
Yeah, I'm not worried about that, and I'll tell you why. No, not at all. And the reason I'm not worried...
Convince me.
I'll convince you right now, easily, and this is, I believe this 100%, because I see it with our fan base. I mean, it's a little bit more in Canada because we're a lot bigger in Canada than we are over here, so I haven't seen it as much in Europe and the UK, but I know it's got to be there because rock music is a priority over here, and it's not in Canada. And so what I've seen in Canada is already encouraging, so I know it must be happening over here because of all the enthusiasm about rock music when we play these festivals. And that is that our fan base has a great divide in the middle, and that's fine with me because the divide lies in the teenage area. We have fans that are late 20s, 30s, and 40 years old, right, which are generally my region of age. And then you have their kids who are now 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and they're all growing up. And so the parents like our band, and they like bands like Rival Sons, and they like bands like Crowbot, and I'm trying to think of another great one, Graveyard. And they like those bands, and then their kids like those bands too. They're 8 years old, they're 7 years old, and they love Monster Truck. And there's no compromise. There's no like the adult is listening to the band that the kid likes, or it's not that the kid's listening to the band. They both love Monster Truck. And so you've got this really young demographic here that they haven't had their input yet. They're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and they're about to be at that age where they're able to start expressing themselves. And as soon as they do that, I think you're going to see some great new music.
Okay, but then once they first you listen to music.
Yep.
Like you were saying, classic rock, listen to and then you get grunge, and then you can play it. But don't you think that the actual transition for kids that are now, like you were saying, 4, 5, 6 years old, when they actually pick up an instrument or make music themselves, don't you think when you grew up, you only had drums, you had guitars, you had maybe piano?
Yeah.
But now you have creating beats, you have all those technical stuff. Don't you think that maybe there's some sort of that might be not helping?
I think first of all, there's going to be a lot of kids that just really get the organic nature of bass, drums, guitar, and they're going to stick with that. Yeah. I think that there's some kids that are also going to evolve, and they're going to find their way into sampling and digital effects and looping and all that kind of stuff that is kind of what most people would consider to be detrimental to rock and roll. But I think they'll take the excitement that they feel for rock and roll and use all these new tools, and they'll create something new. And there'll be something that is still rock and roll music, but it's been changed, and I think that's okay. You know, I think it's always been about evolution. It's been important for us as a band to not just sound like we're from the 70s. You know, to take in the influences of Soundgarden, to take in the influences of Rage Against the Machine, take in the influences of Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, and maybe add even something a little bit new that we kind of come up with on our own. I mean, we're not reinventing the wheel, but at the same time, we're still doing something that I feel is relevant to 2016. And in the same way these kids will grow up, they will find a way to use these new tools to make it rock and roll music. I mean, I still believe in hip hop and rap. I mean, I don't like it anymore, but I did in the early days. It felt like rock and roll, like it was rebellious and it was exciting and it was frowned upon and people didn't like it, and it reminded me of all that shit that happened before with rock and roll, whether it was in the 70s or whether it was grunge music, where I was being, you know, where I was having albums taken away from me because they were, you know, inappropriate. So I'm hopeful. I really am, and I really think everything's going to be fine.